Hi, I'm Will from Tested.
I'm Norm from Tested.
Norm, 7-inch tablets, we like them.
I love them a lot. They're comfortable to hold in one hand,
Look.
such as Google Nexus 7.
I'm holding it in one hand. This is our current favorite 7-inch tablet.
It's $200.
Exactly, 8 gigs of memory. It's pretty good. It has a nice screen. It's made by Asus. It has stock Android on it.
Yeah.
But there's something new out now.
Well, last year, Amazon released the Kindle Fire, which is also a $200 tablet.
You mean this one right here?
Yeah, it looks a lot like the BlackBerry. It looked a lot like the BlackBerry Playbook.
It's the same hardware as the BlackBerry
Pretty much.
Playbook.
And it was not very good. They have their own fork of Android running off of Gingerbread 2.3, and also the hardware was kind of slow. It's good.
Single core,
Single-core.
slow CPU.
Yeah.
It had a nice looking screen, but there was major optimization problems with the OS. The keyboard was kind of laggy. They improved it a little bit over time, but it was never what I would call good.
Yeah. So this year they've updated that to the Kindle Fire HD. They've redesigned the hardware completely. It's not based on any existing tablet, and they redesigned their OS. They upgraded it to now still a fork, but now it's based on Ice Cream Sandwich at least.
I like ice cream sandwiches.
Let's talk about the hardware a little bit. It's still a 7-inch screen. It has a 1280 by 800 pixel screen, which is same resolution and size as the Nexus 7. But if you put the two next together, you can tell that the tablets look very different. I'm gonna go unlock this real quick.
Everyone knows your code.
That's fine. Even though they both are 7-inch screens, the Kindle Fire HD is actually wider. There's more bezel around the edges.
This is a good thing. I find when I'm using the Nexus 7, there's not enough bezel to kind of grip it like
grip
this.
on with the thumb
without,
on one side,
holding.
And with the Kindle Fire, I can perfectly grip without having to do the easel. Put my pinky on the bottom, kind of easel position, the corner grip. And unlike the Nexus 7, you can actually use it in both landscape or portrait orientation. In Jelly Bean, for the 7-inch tablet size, is locked to that portrait orientation.
I can shake it however much I want, and it does not ever rotate.
Yes. So in addition to it being a little wider, it is a little heavier than the Nexus 7. I couldn't tell. It's like 50 grams heavier, but in one hand, actually, it's spread over a larger volume. It feels a little flatter. It is a little bit thinner than the Nexus 7. Doesn't matter.
When you handed them both to me and said which one's heavier, I kind of did this and was able to say, okay, yeah, the Fire's a tiny bit heavier.
Very tiny bit, but it is wider, so in one hand, it's still very easy to hold. You can hold it above your head when you're watching a movie, reading a book, in bed. It's not going to fall on your face and hurt your face.
Off-axis on the screen, the last one had a little bit of off-axis problem, especially when you're in landscape
is
mode.
Actually excellent. I think the screen is actually better than the Nexus 7. It gets much brighter. It's easier to read in sunlight, not completely glare resistant, so it will be reflective. It's glossy, but the off-axis also very good. No banding on colors, and the blacks are really dark.
And one of the things I really find important on a LCD tablet, something you're going to be reading books with, is that it gets very, very dark late at night, and you can turn the brightness on this almost all the way down, which is quite good. In
addition to having it being brighter, if you want to use it outside, it also gets dimmer if you want to use it indoors at night.
That's something the Nexus 7 is really bad at. I have to actually use a third-party app to dim it down some more.
So like the Nexus, there is no hardware button. So there is a hardware soft menu button, so you hit the home screen. And if you can see it from a home screen, if you've used the Kindle Fire before, it's very similar. It's based on this carousel scheme. And what the carousel does is list all your books, your content, so movies, books, albums that you've bought, and apps.
So there's 3 parts.
Yes.
There's this menu at the top, which lets you kind of dive deep into a specific area of the device, right? Like games, books, apps, movies, music, whatever. Of course, that's all tied to Amazon's shopping infrastructure, so it really means Amazon Music. Or Amazon
so
Video.
For example, if I click videos, it'll actually take me to the Amazon Video Store, which loads up Amazon Prime Instant Video, and also movies I can rent and store locally. SD or HD.
So there's sections here for things you haven't bought and things you have bought, which was kind of confusing on the last generation. Have they improved it this time, or is it still a little bit confusing?
No, I mean for books, it'll tell you, what's stored in the cloud, what's on locally in the device, and then there's going to be a button for going into the store. So here,
so actually
cloud, device, and then if you want to hit the store, it'll load a separate store.
So on the books view, you only see the things you purchase until you actually go to the store. That's actually quite good. And you can of course do all the things like rent, check out books, borrow books, and stuff like that.
If you are a Prime subscriber. So second is the carousel, and these are you can configure it kind of. So right now it's ordered by what I've opened last.
So
I just opened this recent, So I opened the book last, so it's here. I had to play the game, tap into calendars, contacts, web browser, and it's not apps. So it's not like Kindle as an app is an icon. Individual books are icons.
So this is like the most recently used pieces of content, not necessarily recently used apps.
So for example, I watched Parks and Recreation, so that's popped up. But next to it could be HBO Go, Netflix, or Iron Man, also from Amazon Prime.
Fantastic film. I don't know if you'd want to watch that.
And as is with the Kindles and the Kindle Fires, they want to push you to the store. So on the bottom you have the customer recommendations. Just like if you were on Amazon's webpage and you're on the Iron Man 2 webpage.
Boy, they have you dialed in, Norm.
They know
Thor,
that
Captain America.
If I'm watching Iron Man 2, I can go watch.
Strings attached.
Exactly, no strings attached, and it's on Amazon Prime, so I can watch that right now. Let's load up a movie.
Let's watch that.
All right, so now I'm tapped in the store, and because this is part of the Prime Instant Streaming, I can click Watch Now.
Okay.
And this is a good place to demonstrate both video playback, and of course that goes to the landscape position, and also a feature that's unique to the Kindle Fire HD, which is the X-ray view. So
I can see it right there. It's blocking my movie.
Yes. And if you tap it, it'll just go away.
Oh, that's nice.
So movies, I mean, it's a 16 by 10 screen, so movies are going to get the black bars. TV shows, they're 60 by 9, you get very tiny black bars. It does play HD movies just fine. So I'll scroll ahead.
And can you choose that stuff, or does it automatically play depending on what you're like?
You can choose what the streaming, and you can choose what the caching is.
So if you're trying to watch over, say, a wireless connection, a cellular connection, and you don't want to destroy your data plan, then you can turn it down.
You can turn it down in the settings. And so if you can see on the left side of the screen, it has a list of the actors, and this is dynamic actually. It's metadata, so they have team of some interns or
thousands of monkeys typing this in.
Watching the movie, watching no strings attached many times, and then indexing when actors appear on screen, when you hear them.
So do you think there's some like massive timeline with the Cooch is on screen here, and then Natalie Portman's here?
Like for example, who are these women in this scene? Oh, it's Jennifer Irwin or
real creepy.
Lake Bell. And so if you're obsessive about movies, you can see, her biography and what other movies she's in.
Buy more stuff.
Rent or buy more of those movies.
Okay, so
everything to point you to that Amazon web store.
I'm going to ask you the big question here, because this seems like when we looked at that Smart Glass demo at E3, which is the Microsoft's implementation of the same thing, I thought, wow, this is a really cool tech demo. I'm never ever going to use that. X-ray has been in books for more than a year now. I've never ever used it.
I think it's useful in movies, especially if you like movie trivia. For example, I was watching Rango, and in the early scene, it's like, wow, that's Gore Verbinski. That's the director of Rango.
Wait, he was a lizard?
He played an owl in one of the mariachi owls. I did not know that, and now I could win at movie trivia.
Bar trivia?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it doesn't obscure the movie if you're just playing the movie playback. It just pops in the background. It doesn't seem to slow down the playback at all. And IMDb is naturally integrated. It's an app separately, so if you want to get into the details, you can load that up as well. I do like also that the interface is on the left.
So because there's no physical home button,
there's no home button.
Someplace.
They locate it when you're in landscape mode. It kind of pops up on the left side. You have your back button and your home button.
So you can kind of thumb it.
And it's where your thumbs would naturally be. So if I want to go back, tip back. If I want to go home or settings, right there, or home, go home.
I did find that a little bit confusing when I was using the keyboard, because I saw a big back button right where I'd expect the backspace button to be. It ended up not being something that confused me for very long, but it was a little bit frustrating right at the very beginning.
So we talked about the carousel, and I don't want to let anyone know that I've just watched no strings attached.
Yeah, that's a good
So policy. I can just tap down and hold, and I can add to favorites or remove from carousel.
Ooh,
I'm going to remove from carousel. So here is something that I actually missed on the Nexus 7, because this is not running stock Android. So when you load up the Nexus 7, or any Android device, you do have your 5 home screens, right, that you can pin widgets to, pin apps to, and also the dock on the bottom.
You can make it your own.
Exactly. You put a background wallpaper. You can't do any of that on the Kindle Fire. Instead of having a dock where I can pin my favorite apps, there's a favorites pop-up that I can pin things to, but it's really ugly, and I didn't like it that much.
Thumbs down. Is that dynamic, or did you have to put stuff there manually?
You have to put stuff there manually.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can hold on, for example, if I really want to play Jetpack Joyride, I can hold and tap, add to favorites, and it will be in my favorites right there.
Great.
Yeah. So the carousel actually is much smoother, and as the interface goes, because this is running on a now dual-core 1.2 gigahertz TI OMAP processor, and
both more capable and faster than the last generation.
More capable and faster with the PowerVR chip. I did not feel any sluggishness in the UI. Launching applications, I think it's just like the Nexus, just any Android device.
Is this still based on Android 2.3?
No, it's on 4.0 now. It's ice cream sandwich.
Okay, ice cream
Yeah,
sandwich.
so it takes advantage of all the ice cream sandwich benefits, and does have background tasks. For example, I can load up Spotify, which I have in my favorites, and I can start a song playing, or I can Amazon Music and having the web locker. This for some reason is upside down now. That's interesting. I can press play, and I have my volume set all the way down, but it will have the playback in the background.
Great. So, how does it work for other stuff that's not? Well, first off, you don't have access to the normal Google Android App Store, Google Play Store.
You have no Google apps whatsoever.
So no Gmail, no Google Voice, none of that stuff is on here.
No YouTube, no Google Maps, none of that. There is an email client, so you can load up email and set email up, which will then tie into calendars and contacts. It's a very simple email client. There's no widget, so you can't see your latest emails. And just like the web browser, which we'll get to in a second, it's not something that I ever saw myself picking up the Fire just to do. If I thought to myself, hey, I want to check my email, I want to check it on the Fire, I went to my phone or my computer.
You're in kind of a unique situation, though. You have 4 tablets in the house, probably.
Even just picking tablets, even if this is my only tablet, I would still go to the computer or the phone first.
Because the email client's not very good. The calendar is...
Because it's not very forward-facing, right? Just like if you open the iPad and you want to read a book, you have to open the Kindle app, go to your book, and then open a book. Here you have to turn this on, unlock it, swipe through. Okay, that's my email client. Click email, wait for that to load.
It's very precious, the icon. What's the app selection like in the Android marketplace, in the Amazon marketplace?
Extremely grim. So already Amazon has their own Android app store.
Right.
You can use the Amazon Android app store to buy Android apps for your Android phone.
Exactly. And they have stuff like Plants vs. They have PopCap games exclusively, I think, and then a bunch of other stuff as well.
It's still a subset of the bigger whole Google Play Store, which is all the Android apps. What's available to the Kindle Fire is a subset of that. So some essentials, for example, you might have seen, Netflix is here, Skype is here, Flipboard, HBO Go, Hulu Plus. That's here. No Instagram, no Dropbox. Many of the features, and none of the banking apps I use.
Stuff like password syncing apps and things like that are all going to be missing too.
Yeah, and I missed all that stuff. It really feels like the Kindle Fire isn't a device. Kindle Fire HD isn't a device that I'm downloading a lot of apps from. Maybe games, but not productivity or utility apps.
I hesitate to say because it's going to sound a little bit reductive, but it sounds like it's more of an e-reader plus than a tablet minus.
It's an e-reader, video player, music player plus, things to consume media, really consume media, because content is forward-facing, with the ability then to also install some apps.
But you do have a web browser.
You do have a web browser, so let's talk about it right now. And your only web browser option is Silk. You can't install Chrome, no Opera, no Dolphin. All you have is Silk, which is Amazon's web browser. And again, I can go to web, scroll here.
This is the thing where they do some of the pre-rendering on the server, on EC2, and then blast the data to you once it's been rendered.
Right.
So it loads kind of oddly. It loads very slowly, and then boom, it all comes in at once.
Or you can disable that.
Of course.
Yes. Web browsing, I didn't feel like the MIMO, the dual Wi-Fi antennas, benefited at all. I mean, I have a pretty standard Wi-Fi setup at home and at the office here. It was loading just as fast as on here as the Next 7, not any faster.
Hardly anyone has dual antenna routers, which you need it on both sides. And the other thing is MIMOs usually extends range. It does have some bandwidth improvements. The bandwidth improvements aren't going to matter at all for tablets because most people's broadband is too slow to show that. It may matter, it may give you a little bit better range.
So web browsing, I think, at best, I would call it serviceable. Again, I didn't ever pick up the Kindle Fire to say, I'm going to now start a session of browsing the web, of doing my daily web browsing.
It's more, hey, I want to find out about this thing that I just read in a book. I'm going to click on the web browser and go look it up.
But once you're in the web browser, it does everything you expect a web browser to do. The pinch, the zoom, the scrolling is much faster than on the first Kindle Fire. It has tabs, has bookmarks, but has none of the awesome features that you find in Chrome, like device syncing or the other device access and or the gestures.
Right.
And of course, a browser is a good place to show the keyboard, which is unique to the Kindle Fire. You mentioned this earlier, the delete button is moved.
It's in a weird place.
Yeah, I got used to it really quickly.
It took me like 10 minutes.
My thumbs here, really easy. in the portrait position. In the landscape position is a little more difficult to get used to because the back button also looks like a delete button. So initially you do hit that back button as opposed to recognizing that delete is right there.
I spent 10 minutes with it with the keyboard earlier today. I was adjusted very quickly. So I don't think that's a problem. And the keyboard lag has gone away. That was a problem with all Android 2.0, 2.x devices basically, which they seem to have fixed with Ice Cream Sandwich. So. Overall, I mean, it seems like you're going to tell me that this is a media consumption device. Normally.
Absolutely a media consumption device. If it wasn't exactly the same price, it's a tough decision to make because it's the exact same price as this Nexus 7. They're both $200. Amazon now charges tax. Now Google will charge you shipping, unless there's double the capacity in here, 16 gigs as opposed to 8 gigs.
And there's a 32 gig option available.
And there is a 32 gig option available. But because you're mostly streaming, you're going to use that storage maybe for games that have a lot of graphics, or if you want to cache a few HD movies for a plane trip.
Speaking of games, it's worth mentioning, you told me that there's a little bit of a cheat on the game side.
Yeah, the games don't render full resolution, native resolution. For example, if I play Fruit Ninja or Jetpack Joyride, it's going to look a little pixelated. They run really smoothly, but not
It looks noticeably worse than on an iPad or an iPhone even, so I can't imagine it's not a great experience for games.
There is a larger battery in here than on the Nexus 7. I would still say both a day and a half of normal use.
Okay.
If you're streaming, you're going to get less than a day of video streaming.
So basically, if you use it for a couple hours each day, you can probably go 2-3 days without having to charge.
Yeah, for reading especially. If you can go reading, no problem. And in addition to charging with micro USB, there's also a micro HDMI port, which does the video mirroring. So you can see everything on here on the screen, which works with the Amazon Instant Play, works with Netflix, does not work with HBO Go. So just like with AirPlay on the iPad, HBO Go is content protected, and an error message will pop up.
So it's going to be an app-by-app basis whether or not they allow that.
I don't know how useful an actual tethered connection is to the TV. I feel like most people have Apple TVs or Roku boxes, but if they don't, this will substitute.
I could see plugging that in a hotel just to watch.
That's what everyone says.
I've done it before with an iPad, but
instead of renting, paying $10 to rent the fancy movie in the hotel, you have.
Then when I fall asleep, I can watch the rest on the airplane the next day.
Yep. Oh, also one more thing to mention: music or the speakers are very loud. It's the loudest speakers I've ever seen.
Don't play the music. I don't want to get the YouTube stuff. We'll take your word for that.
It's very loud.
I agree.
There are stereo speakers on the back here and here. And it's significant.
And it was they did a good job with the placement. You're unlikely to block the speaker with your hand like you do on the iPad. So, so I guess that'll do it for Kindle Fire
that's
HD.
the Kindle Fire HD. There is an 8.9-inch version coming out later this year.
So this is $200 or $250?
$200 or $250 for the 16 or 32 gig. I think the screen is better, definitely. I think it's easier to hold than the Nexus 7. If you don't ever see yourself buying apps in the Google Play Store and are fine with Netflix and Amazon Prime Instant Play and reading, then this is, I think, a really fine tablet.
So that'll do it for us this time. I'm Will.
I'm Norm.
See you guys later.
Bye.